try that one. Okay, welcome back. Again, I don't have much to talk about. I have some slides, so let me just see where we are. So that's where we are, week 3. That's what we're doing. I thought I should talk a little bit more about this 10% of product, because I want you, the teams, to tell me how I'm going to grade that. And I'm going to give you examples of what I'm looking for. This has to, if you like, it's going to be a rubric that you're going to tell me in the success criteria part of your detailed design document that's going to tell me how to grade what you produce at the end, the thing that you produce. All right? So this is what I came up with, and I'm happy to change it or update it or whatever. Right. So from your preliminary design documents last year, well, I suppose it's last academic year, but last semester, right? There were 3 key pieces that were telling me what you're going to build. The requirements, use case diagram, which is, it's sort of functional requirements, but it's digging a little bit deeper, and it's telling me a little bit about the software or firmware that has to be implemented. So it's getting a bit closer to the actual product. And then an architecture diagram, which is telling me what are the pieces I'm going to be looking out for when you deliver your product at the end of semester. Okay? And the way I'm going to grade that product piece is, does what you produce meet the requirements? Yeah. Does what you produce do what the use case diagram says? Does what you produce match the architecture diagram? Now, I can tell you now the answer to those 3 questions is going to be no, no, and no. Just because that's the way projects work. So, what else does that tell us? If it doesn't, and say it meets half the requirements, that's great. What I'm going to be looking for the other half of requirements that weren't met is specifics in the lessons learned part of your final report. Okay? Same with these other 2, right? Like I said, it's probably going to be no, no, and no if you answered those things completely truthfully. Right? It's not going to be 100%, it's not going to be 100%, it's not going to be 100%. It might be 80, 80, 80, and that'd be fabulous. Right? But the 20% I'm going to need to see that you've thought about it and you have maybe some action items. Maybe you're not going to be able to take them, but at least that you've thought about what you would do differently the next time you do something similar. Okay, so I went through your documents from last semester, and for example, here's the functional and non-functional requirements from the home security drive. Right? The system shall connect to Wi-Fi. What if it doesn't? The system shall be mobile. What if it's not? The system shall record movement during the day when detection is sensed. So one of the things I want you to think about is, if I have this requirement, the system shall connect to Wi-Fi, how am I going to demonstrate that? Because one of the things I'll be looking at either during your final presentation or in the immediate aftermath of the final presentation, is can I check off some of these requirements? Now, it may be that your list of requirements has changed over the summer, and that is okay. But make sure your new document updates them, and an option is not to remove all the requirements, right? Because then I'm going to give you a grade of 0 out of 0, which everybody knows is under 5, right? So, and then the home security drone. So, with the block diagram, right, I'm looking for, there's a cell phone in the working system, or the delivered system, there's a drone, and there's a motion sensor, right? They're the things I'm going to be looking for when I think about product, that 10% product piece. And here's a use case diagram. I'm just using this as a view into the software that you're going to produce, right? And I don't think I'm going to go through and check off every ellipse or whatever, but I am going to use it to figure out how much of what you produce is undone. What else do you need to do at the end of it? And to colour my perception of all three of those items, the requirements, the architecture, and the use case, I suggest you as a team self-grade, right? Which of the requirements did you meet? And give me the data that says you met them. Is this what the final architecture looked like? Maybe you didn't get to the cell phone piece. Is this what the software? Well, we didn't get to these two pieces. So I suggest you self-grade. And when you do that self-grading, we didn't get to these two pieces, and the lesson learned is, I don't know, we forgot a piece of hardware that was needed to implement that particular piece of functionality, or something like that, right? So the smart fridge upgrade, again, the system shall keep an inventory of food produce. Does it or doesn't it? The system shall have 2 cameras which allow for pictures to be taken of fridge inventory. The system shall have a connection to a secure network. Some of these statements, I would need a little bit more detail, right? What do you mean by a secure network? Is that a VPN, or is it a network that uses IPsec, or is it just one that is protected behind a couple of layers of firewalls, like with the DMZ, right? So what do you mean by secure? And then this is sort of a bit of a combination architecture and use case diagram, right? But I think it captures a lot of the stuff that both of those diagrams have. And then I couldn't, for the parking automation, I couldn't actually pull out explicitly the functional and non-functional requirements. There were diagrams, right? And I can certainly infer from the use case diagram what some of those functional requirements are. But I had so they were probably there, because I remember talking about some of them, but They weren't pulled out explicitly like they were in the other two reports. The system.
I can do that for you.
Yeah, I think that would be useful. I mean, not now, but
yeah,
that would be good, particularly for the what's it called, the detailed design document, right?
Okay.
And the presentation. Okay. Any questions or comments about that? Okay. So, like I said, the aim is to tell you how I'm going to grade that product 10% at the end. And it's all about what you produce as a team to try and solve the problems that you've identified. Okay, so status reports. Now, I asked for the project plans and I didn't need anything too detailed, and I didn't have time to quite go into what I wanted to go into, so I'm just going to show you and give you some feedback on the plans. I'm not saying you should work to these plans. What I'm proposing is that I will run the project plan. Right? I just wanted something to start with from each team. And then as part of this status report, there's going to be stuff coming up like, oh, this week we did X instead of Y because we didn't realise we had to do X before we could do Y, or whatever it is. So let me so this is running on the just turn off the light. Don't go to sleep on it. Right, so this is the security drone project, and this is the sort of thing I was looking for. This team started their plan last semester, and that includes the summer vacation. So when you manage a project, first thing is you've got to figure out what the tasks are. You've done that. But there's three parts to a project. There's the scope, which are the tasks. There's the duration, which is how long each task takes. And then there's the cost. And a lot of project managers tend to manage their projects based on cost. And you'll see that I've put in resources here that indicate the cost structure. Right, the team, I just put in one team resource. Normally what you would do is for every person on the team you would put in a separate line item. But I just put in a team resource. And then for every deliverable, the preliminary design document, normally that's a zero duration thing, but there's some value in having that document. So I made it a fixed cost item. The team I made have an hourly cost. And I made it up completely. I think the number I used for the team, which is going to sound remarkably cheap, was just $20 per hour. Now each of these items is done over one or several days. So, and project makes the assumption that it's 8 hours, 8 work hours per day. So that means that for every day that it takes to generate to put together a general template, that is $160 worth of value. So what you'll see, and I'll scroll across, right, there's this cost column, and for all of them, except for the summer vacation, which I've put in as no cost, and the design docs, which are put in as a fixed cost deliverable, each of these is in there as $160 per day that it took. And because what I've done is I've put all of the tasks that take to generate the product under a single summary task. So that means this number here, 10,340, is the total cost of every subsidiary task. So then I can do some interesting stuff, right? One of the things project lets you do is set a status date, right? I can go in here and say status, and it'll bring up status date, and I put in earlier today's date. And then the actual cost column will update with values based on the status date, right? So you'll see that, in fact, I don't think I've put in any work on the general template, right? So it's not done. But anything that is done, let's see if we can find the percentage done, right? So here's the percentage done, and I put everything from last semester is 100% done, and I haven't allocated anything here because I wanted to make sure that each of these tasks has been complete by asking you. Actual cost is related to the cost and the percentage done. Right? If the percentage done is 100%, then these two columns are equal. If percentage done is 0, then actual cost hasn't been incurred yet, so it's 0. If this percentage is 50%, then this line item, general template, will have half of that cost in there. Right? BCWS. That's a little bit of an overboard acronym. It stands for Budgeted Cost of Work Schedule. So that BCWS takes the actual cost column and that status date that I put in and says, okay, this is how much we should have done by that date, right? And you'll notice that this last item, $720, is not quite 100% of 800. because this task isn't finishing until Monday. So we've got 1 day left of work on detailed design research. Okay. Now, what you can do, in fact, with these two numbers is you can, in fact, with these two, maybe the cost. There's an approach to project management called earned value management. And this number here is the actual cost. So once you've this number here was set at the beginning of the project, and that is the planned value. Once you complete one of these items, you earn that value, right? So second draft, we planned it for $320 of value. Now that we've completed it, we've captured that amount of value. It's possible that we spent more time on this than we should have. So the actual cost may be higher. Comparing those two numbers, if we were exactly going to plan, those two numbers should be equal. Right? The budgeted cost and the actual cost should be equal. As it is, it's saying we haven't spent as much as we could have or should have, which probably means we haven't either done as much as we should have, or we haven't reported that we've done, which is more likely because I haven't set anything for this semester to be done yet. Okay. So that's that one. Let's just have a quick look at the other one. Right, similarly here, I've put in the same column, the cost, the budgeted cost of work schedule, and the actual cost. And I think I've probably set some of the percentage done for this semester as 100% of this. That's why it's a little closer. But it's still not quite there, right? And again, it might just be a reporting issue. I haven't got the information, so I haven't put it into the plan. What you can do with those numbers, cost, actual cost, budget, cost of work schedule, is you can put together two performance indicators. The SPI, the Schedule Performance Index, or indicator, and the cost performance indicator. And that's a number that if everything is on cost and on schedule, it should be 1. If it's greater than 1, then you're either spending too much or you're behind schedule, or both. If it's less than 1, then you're ahead of schedule, or you haven't spent as much as you should have at this stage of the plan. What I'm going to try and do for next week is update both of these to, and the third one to reflect that. So, yeah. Now I had a couple of comments and I've forgotten which one it was about. Right, so it's probably on both of them. Well, certainly on this one, right? So I don't know if you remember when I was talking about writing requirements, right? If you write a requirement, a shall statement, that has an and or an or in it, that's two requirements. Here, there was a single task, create parts list for order and research app development. Right, that's two completely separate tasks. So what I've done is I've just put in two subtasks. One of them create parts list and one of them research app. I know it's tempting to have as few tasks in the list as possible. The problem with that is the chunkier you make your plan, the worse its accuracy is as far as finishing is concerned. You don't want to go overboard and detail every hour that you spend it. But at some level you need to have a significant number of tasks. And the more tasks, the better, because what tends to happen is then you get something that is sort of following what's called the law of large numbers, right? The more things you get, the closer the distribution of those things comes to a Gaussian or a normal distribution. And even though each individual task is still just as inaccurate as the estimate is just as inaccurate as every other one, as it was before, because you've got many more of them, the inaccuracies tend to cancel out a bit. So overall, the full thing is more accurate. Okay, I've been talking for too long. I'm going to put the lights back on. Look, I see people falling asleep. That way. Okay. Now, so the question I have for this team, which one's this? This is the smart fridge. Is did you get the parts list done? I'm assuming the answer is yes. You gave it to me, right? And so the reason I know that's done is because you did give me the parts list. How do I know research app is done?
In our status report, we said that we did do a little bit of research on it.
Right. So what I recommend is put together I'd probably just put, if you've got that GitHub repository, create a research.md file and dump all the links that you've looked at in there. Right? Just save them there. That way you've got, I can see, the whole team can see what you've got, commit it and push it up to GitHub. Okay, and that's what I want everybody to do, because I'm going to be asking you. At the moment, I don't have that, if you want to call it deliverable or way I can say yes, you've done the research. Right? So I want to see something either in your status report, which is where I can see the parts list, or in your repository, and it mightn't be a bad idea to also put the parts list in your repository, right? Once you've finalised it, you don't want to edit it too much, because GitHub isn't great for binary files. But once you've sent it to me, and you've uploaded it to the status report in Blackboard, put it into GitHub as a record. Okay, let's have a look at the other one. So the beginning detailed design was what happens with the general template? What is being produced with the general?
We actually ended up kind of switching. We did the detailed design research. We haven't started on the template. We've been focusing more on research.
Okay, well, what have you? Again, I'll tell you exactly the same thing that I told the other team, right? So get that,
Put the links in the
document that research somewhere. It doesn't have to be pretty, right? Just cut and paste the links into a text file or a .md file, markup. .md is the markdown format that GitHub uses for text, right? So you can just use hashtag space, and that'll give you a big header. Double hashtag will give you a slightly smaller header, and then everything else just comes in as text. And if it's a URL, it'll be clickable. Okay. And then I'll say the same thing for the parking automation, right? So I want to try and get to a plan. And if you want, I can send you out a template, but I need to see some of the specifics for the parking automation group.
Okay.
What's happening? Okay. What I'm going to try and do is next week when we do the status reports, I'll try and give you an SPI and a CPI based on these numbers. And if there's extra tasks, we'll add them in. I did a reasonably large project years ago where we did a big upfront plan and then we tracked it. And when there was a new task, an unplanned task that we had to do, I added it to the project plan and I kept track of the number of unplanned tasks versus planned tasks. Any guesses as to what the relationship between the number of hours of planned tasks versus the number of hours of unplanned tasks was?
Probably even.
Even? That's a little bit of an overstatement. So, not far off though, right? So, for every 2 hours of planned work, we had 1 hour of unplanned work. Right? So there was 2 to 1. It wasn't quite 1 to 1. So, and that was with a reasonably, what's the word? Reasonably experienced team. Right? So even though we had an experienced team, we still had this under. And I fully expect it might be 1 to 1 for these teams, right? For the capstone teams. That's okay, but the thing is to see that and learn from it. Okay. Okay, so home security drone. Can we have your status report? Just a quick, what have you done since last time? What are you going to do before next time? And what's stopping?
Yeah, so as I said before, we're focusing more on research. Just been looking into some of the components that we have, trying to get more information on how we can make things work together. So that's really what we've been working on. As far as what we're going to do for last time, we've got to get started on that template for the draft, the detailed design document. And as far as what's stopping us, nothing really.
Okay, sounds good. So, smart fridge upgrade.
Okay, so what
we did prior to this meeting, we obviously updated our schedule. We looked further into researching our top. I think Michael already talked to you about getting a license.
So just on all of that sort of stuff, I'm a great believer in seek forgiveness, not permission. Don't wait for me to give you permission to do it. If you think it's okay, just do it. If I don't think it's okay, and then we'll sort that out later, right? But I don't want to be a roadblock for you getting stuff done. So just do it. Sorry.
And hopefully in our future meeting we'll have gone through our discussion for the detailed design document. And as for what's stopping us, honestly the wait times on the products that we ordered, and obviously getting our domain name, because what you told me is we're not going to be able to get to it for that.
Yeah, so let me give an update on the parts. CEGT lost its long-time admin secretary, Kimberly Brown-Smith, and I think we were supposed to get another admin today. So I'm hoping they'll be able to put the order in on Monday. At least that's what Professor Wu told me. So I put the order in on whenever it was, Wednesday, but because of this changeover in personnel, hopefully that happens Monday, and then we should be able to order it. Domain names. If you want to order stuff, by far the easiest, even if it's more expensive, is to go through Amazon. Right? Ordering through any other place is hard for a variety of reasons. If it's not a place Central has ordered from before, somebody has to go and find their tax number, their EIN. Somebody has to tell them, hey, Central doesn't pay sales tax, so don't charge us sales tax. So it's a much more involved process, particularly for things like that are intellectual property related.
On that note, if we were to change our domain from GoDaddy to AWS, would that be a possibility for you?
Does Amazon actually sell?
I don't think domains, but I think you can sort of rent a server.
Right, it's the server, yeah. And again, I don't know. See, the problem with that is at AWS, you don't know how much it's going to cost until you get the bill.
Okay.
Right. So, and again, if you forget to turn the server off or whatever, that'll rack up charges. Yeah. So, as an example of Amazon versus everything else, and was it spring last year, I was asked to teach logic design, whatever it's called, 466, right? And I wanted to get new development boards because the old ones were not supported by the latest version of Quartus. So I went through AliExpress and I bought a $32 development board from China. Now it took 2 months to get to me, right? Which is part of the issue there, particularly because this was at the beginning of the pandemic, so everything was a little off. I thought, okay, I'll see if I can get CCSU to put their order in with enough time, 2 months, so that it'll have all of the boards will have time to get here. No, they said We can't order from there. I found exactly the same board on Amazon for $72. I was able to order without any questions raised at all, going through Amazon, and $40 extra for a $32 piece of kit.
Awesome.
Right? So it is what it is. I'm not a big fan of bureaucracy, and I try to interact with it as little as possible. Okay. That was, you finished with?
Yep.
Yep. Sorry, so parking automation.
Yep. So I have the beginning of the detailed design and the presentation. In terms of like presentation, I just have the document with a couple points on it. But the detailed design document I have the template of, which I've been working on over the past week or so. And we put together some more code stuff. We figured some stuff out for that. What we plan to do, first I'll finish the detailed design document and then upload it to GitHub. And then that's pretty much it for that. I finished the design presentation.
So just remember, I think I set it up to be due on the 16th, which is Thursday next week. The peer review of the draft detailed design. Okay, so try and at least get a document with the headings in there. A lot of the information you already have from your preliminary design document should carry over. So that's going to be maybe, I don't know, maybe 30% of the document. So try and get at least that much done for Thursday next week so that we can then flip over to the evaluation. Okay? And that's for everything, not just the parking automation. Okay.
One quick question on that. You said submit it through GitHub. Is that the only place you wanted it?
So think about GitHub as the history, and it's mainly for the team. Right? I need stuff submitted in Blackboard. Anything that's accessible, I need something submitted in Blackboard. So if you go to Blackboard, one of them. Thinking about it. One of the problems with having an old laptop, anyway. So if you go to assessment, oops, that is the first one, right? This is the detailed design doc. I edited it to show you the rubric that I'm going to be using, and then I also added 6 different examples from the last cohort of detailed design documents, just so that you've got something to look at. There's aquadromes, the everywhere alarm, coffee king, laundry alarm, lift, and the motion powered light. So have a look at those. Just trying to think. From memory, the motion powered light team did a really good job, and most of the others were pretty good as well, but I think the best one was motion powered light. Okay. And I think that's all I had. Okay. So the other thing I have is some toys. Right. I have had some stuff at home, and these are some of those little Wi-Fi enabled processors, and then I've got a slightly bigger version. It's the same chip, but it comes on a little board that's maybe a little bit easier to solder, and it's also got a programming board. The other ones, the chip-only ones, you need a programming board separate to plug in, and it's got a USB connector there to program it using Arduino or what have you. Those of you who are interested in motion sensors, there's some passive infrareds that might be good. I've got a pile of them. And then I have 3 Arduinos and 2 Raspberry Pis. So if you want to have a look at any of that stuff. I'm done. You should talk in your teams. You should write up your status reports and submit them to Blackboard. The only thing I have for you for next week is to make sure you get that draft detailed design document into the peer review thing before Thursday night, or by Thursday night.